So, hello, boys and girls. Welcome back to my weekly update. I don't have many who watch it, basically just my friends, which is okay. Okay, I want to talk about a couple of things today. First of all, what was my favorite post on Facebook recently? It has been this meme. And I'm a huge Cage fan for a very long time. And I see a lot, or I saw a lot of people criticizing Nicolas Cage, and I think they didn't know what they were really doing, and they didn't really see what Nick Cage is about, right? He works in good movies, he works in bad movies because he has to make money. He's a bad actor and he's a good actor, but somehow he's in between. And see what I think it has become recently during the age of playing Abraham Lincoln, somebody who's completely paralyzed, somebody who's dropped in the wilderness and has to survive. Like in the age of really dramatic roles, we have placed a huge emphasis on authenticity. And that can be a mean of an artful film, but it can also be a mean of an artful film to overemphasize and to make the role more visible in an exaggerated form. And if we are honest, not all performances that we see in real life are always entirely authentic. There are also people that we call inauthentic that also exaggerate their attitudes. So therefore this meme on Nick Cage, and I really recommend Nick Cage, one of my favorite actors who, by the way, also has won an Oscar. Okay, so an interesting show that I watched was the show of Will Smith. It was called The Best Shape of My Life. And it is interesting because it's one of these self-improvement seminars again where somebody says, yeah, I got fat, but now like I really work on myself and I really make it to come into the shape that I had before again. And Will Smith is one of my favorite actors because I feel his personality is so incredibly positive. When he goes into a room, I would say it's charisma. But since recently I saw more of his private life, I was doubting that a little bit more and found it a bit superficial because he's always filled up with this attitude, yeah, you can make it if you want it, which I think is a good attitude to adopt in life, but it may not always be true. And from the position of someone who has made it, it's very easy to say that it was because of this attitude. Now, this show seemed to me interesting because it seems that he's going to fail on that journey. He goes on a calorie deficit, and at the same time, he is writing a book where he actually dives back into his past, and he had a very soldier-esque father who trained him to do everything when he has a mission and he completes his mission. But he also dives into the question of violence and what it does with you during your life. So it's a question about violence too. It's sad, especially for men who usually cry when father-son relationships are discussed. And it has some critical notes, but it is not as critical about the self-improvement spiel as the trailer suggests. At some point in the show, Will Smith says, you can make it, you can make it. But then he says something like, of course, that is bullshit. That is bullshit. Let me see if I can find the scene. I haven't prepared it. He says here, I don't want shooting. I won't do this thing, the best shape of my life. Let's listen for a second.
Life to get in the way of me getting in the best shape of my life.
Okay, we're done. Let's pack it up.
No, I don't find the moment probably. This isn't again. So I don't think it's spoiling too much.
I'm finished with the best shape of my life. I want to get in the best shape of my life, and I don't want shooting the best shape of my life to get in the way of me getting in the best shape of my life.
Okay, we're done. Let's pack it up.
Yeah. So I don't find the passage, but at some point he says it's all bullshit, like this positive advice. Maybe when you rewatch it, you find that scene. Okay, so what have I done during the week? I downloaded Luminar AI. I think you can work better with that. Maybe you see the mistake here. Actually, we have here the golden hour on Daisy's face, but of course, in the back we have a very blue sky, and it is because I put the sky in there. Luminar AI, a great program for editing, and a recommendation from me. Yeah, the Rittenhouse case happened, and I have to say that there are many points that we can see in a skeptical light, and it's very American. It's a very American problem because, first of all, I'm opposed to guns. I mean, I can understand that people say, yeah, but I want to defend myself, and America is a country where you sometimes live in a lonely house. I can see these arguments and I acknowledge them. I'm not like 100% that a country shouldn't have guns, but I think it's better if a country has no guns, and I would give that as a recommendation. And in the Rittenhouse case, if you don't know, I don't know if I say his name correctly, there was a boy, 70 years old. He went to another state, another town where there was a riot or a protest because a black person was shot in the back by police officers and killed. And the riots were destroying, or were possibly destroying, local businesses. And he saw that as an injustice, as much as he probably sees the other issues as an injustice. But of course, in societal terms, all questions cross and everything comes together. So he went there with a rifle, with a militant group of civil soldiers who thought they could protect these properties. And maybe they can. I would suggest stay at home, right? Carrying an open gun. It increases the likelihood that it increases the level of violence is high. And that is what happened. He was attacked by one of the protesters. He ran away, and they attacked him again, and he shot in that aftermath 3 people, or in the process. And I looked at the video. I think in a singularized way, we can clearly say that it's self-defense, and that is what happened in the court case. I do believe that the court case is done correctly. He may have been treated fairly and justly because he has been white. Possibly a black person would have been treated unjustly. But that is no reason for treating a white person unjustly, right? And I like this meme here because it points out the problem that the right wing is now turning Rittenhouse or whatever his name is into a hero. Because he's no hero. He just defended himself. And for that reason, he should probably not go into jail. Nevertheless, he has killed 3 people. A moral burden that he has to carry with him. And if he hadn't taken that gun to that place, if he hadn't gone there, then these 3 people would still be alive, right? So I think it's a more dilemmatic structure. And even though I think he shouldn't be charged for that, I don't want to dismiss counter arguments that the case is morally problematic, right? And also keep in mind that I'm more against the idea of punishment. So, and here we see the problem with the glorification of the right of Rittenhouse, where here it says Rittenhouse get cleared of all charges, about to exit the courtroom, and the judge yells out from behind, "Hey kid!" And he turns around and says, "You forgot that," and he throws to him the AR-15, and then the credits roll and Eye of the Tiger plays. So it's a complicated case, And a friend of me pointed out that, of course, he should have been judged, and just because everyone is political, they don't judge him. But no, I think he shouldn't have been judged, right? And there are like these ways of how it is contrasted, right? Somebody said there are black and brown folks in prison for most of their lives over weed, which is unjust. And again, I'm very much against prison, and I think they shouldn't be in prison. But is it right here to contrast that? But a white person can just cross state lines with an automatic weapon and murder people with no repercussions. Can't fix a justice system that is working as intended. The system is designed by and for white supremacy. So there are also cases where black people have been released for self-defense. I think the self-defense law is a good law because it decreases the amount of what I would say unjust punishment in general, or the amount of punishment that we have in our society. Of course, that's no. That doesn't mean that everything counts as self-defense. I once had somebody pointing out with regard to me that when somebody wears a swastika, that's an immediate threat, and then he's allowed to self-defend. That's a bit absurd. Like, I mean, of course, when Nazis come, that may be a danger to Jews that they may be killed in the course of 10 years. But there may be many other means to be taken in order to prevent that going to happen. But yeah, we see a lot of comments on that issue. So, for example, Trevor Noah, which I regard as a politically charged one. There are parts that are correct about his statement. Nobody drives into a city with guns because they love someone else's business that much. That's some bullshit. No one has ever thought, oh, it's my solemn duty to pick up a rifle and protect that TJ Maxx. They do it because they're hoping to shoot someone. Very interpretive, suggesting a lot about the intentions of other people. I think many people who wear guns in America don't want to shoot someone. If that were the case, we would have way more shootings, right? But I agree with Trevor Noah, okay, we shouldn't drive into another city where there are riots and then say we should protect something. We should probably have a police force that takes care of that. So, and then the right says, and that's probably correct, that they say that Kyle is innocent, he was just defending themselves. And then the left, so that means Breonna Taylor's boyfriend is innocent. And I say, yeah, he's innocent. Both are innocent, right? So this way of putting two positions together and saying, oh, the right definitely says that, I think it's a bit wrong. I think both of them are innocent. So Breonna Taylor's boyfriend heard the police coming into his place, and he didn't hear that it was the police, and he started shooting to defend himself. And then the police officers, they just went rogue, and they were shooting into his room. They didn't kill him, but they killed Breonna Taylor. And that's also a very problematic case that I don't think we have an easy answer for that. But I would say, as much as I say that Kyle is innocent in terms of the law, not morally innocent, right? As much, and maybe even more innocent, is Breonna Taylor's boyfriend. I think he's more innocent. He thought, like, he rightfully assumed that somebody was entering his property. Okay, human beings, that's also a question that this movie talks about that I watched. Finch, another Tom Hanks movie. We know Tom Hanks from Cast Away. He's a lonely guy who can fill a screen with his presence and make a volleyball alive. And that's maybe also the premise for this movie, where he tries to protect his dog. He's lonely on Earth. There was the solar layer was somehow destroyed, as it seems, and the sun is very brutal, and there are not many survivors because I guess there's no food. And he builds this AI and this AI becomes alive, somehow adopts human characteristics, and it is about passing the torch to the next generation of AI, I guess. It's a vision about robots inheriting probably our planet and learning what human values are, but also talking about the dangers of humans. So I enjoyed that movie. I watched it without breaks, so I think that can be a recommendation. I feel a bit that the question problematic, well, how much is that AI a human consciousness or just a machine operating? Just a machine fulfilling functions, right? The qualia question is not asked. Okay, other recommendation in case you want to learn something about crypto. Andrei Jikh, certainly somebody who's in favor of Bitcoin, who made a lot of money with it and who's arguing for it. For long-term investing, that may be good to get informed about crypto. Why is crypto crashing? That's this video about. I don't think he answers that very well, but I think he's a good explainer. If you want to invest in the crypto market, it's always a bit late, right? He always reflects on something that has happened. But as Hegel says, reflecting on something that has happened can prepare your concepts for the future so that you will have better answers for problems that occur in the future and maybe adapt better to an unknown future. So what is my opinion for why the crypto market crashed last week? Well, it is because it is tied to the stock market. There are many professional traders in their professional companies. They get maybe margin calls. They have to shift their portfolios. They have to risk manage. The risk management leads to chain reactions on the stock market. They go into less risky currencies, and that means also, or much less risky investments. That means they have to free capital and they pull it out of Bitcoin, change their overall portfolio with regard to that risk management. Maybe that's one side of it. So a stock market crash definitely also has effects on the crypto market. Now, does it mean that the crypto market really crashed? Well, there are support levels, so people are waiting to get back into Bitcoin. When Bitcoin goes under a certain level, they say, oh, now it's a chance to buy because I'm sure it will rise again. Maybe there are still people who are selling, but I think these support lines are still very stable. I don't think that in the near future we see a crazy crypto crash. And the reason for that is we are relatively stably moving around an all-time high that was achieved before. We didn't see tremendous gains in the last month, so there's no inflation. There are no speculators in there right now that just wait for a hype to stop and to get out at the right moment, right? Maybe when we see Bitcoin at 100,000, that may be a question again, or at 120,000. But insofar, I think that nothing is going to happen. Also because with regard to the stock market, all risks right now unknown. There is no new Corona crash. Corona we are already used to. We know that we have a chip crisis that we deal for longer with. We know that there are delivery shortages. So all of that, and we know that inflation happens because of that. All of that is already expected, so it's somehow already priced into the market. Of course, if something gets worse, then the market will react, but I don't think that there is a crash-like event that will influence crypto. So I don't think that there's a crypto crash. Okay, so I'm already in 20 minutes. Yeah, let me just talk about my Instagram very briefly at the end. You see here I added more pictures on the learning of photography. I focused more on that. I didn't do my plan yet of transferring them to the other channels because I became a bit of perfectionist. And you see also in the numbers, there were some problems that I ran into. So compared to last week, I didn't grow my account for 300 followers again. I just grew it 50 followers. Same for my Schulz Norman account. And I also grew it for the learning of photography very minimally, though there it's not a goal. And that is, there's one problem that right now I'm running a bit out of photographers to follow. It seems like I have now a circle of photographers, and when I try to find new ones, I always just find photographers that I already follow. So I have to break through and break out of the circle. And I should definitely also develop new strategies in order to grow my channel. Okay, that's all, 20 minutes. That should be really a breaking point. I have more to say, but maybe I can say it next week. I hope you enjoyed it. If you enjoyed it, if you think there were interesting points, then maybe you subscribe or share it with your friends or give it a like, give it a comment. All of that helps. Yeah, other than that, I'm thankful that you listened, even when it's a small number, and talk to you next week.